What's going on, everybody? I'm Lauren Rosen, and I will be your host here this evening, joined today by two of my favorite people to talk hoops with. He's one of the best creators in the game. You know him in the digital world. Now he's on your screens. Dom 2K, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here. Another week closer to the playoffs.
Another week closer to the offs, and who better to talk about it than former NBA video coordinator turned elite analyst Mo Dakhil. Great to see you again.
Oh, it's good to see you guys. I'm happy to be here with you guys. It's always going to be fun.
So here's how this is going to work. One game has gone final. The Nuggets just beat Portland 128-112 at home in Denver. We have we got a close game now in Sacramento where Brooklyn is visiting. They're up 3. And then a couple games yet to tip off. We'll make sure to bring you around all of them and back. But let's start where we just ended. And Mo, I'll start here with you. What went right for Denver in the second half? Little defense in the first, but they pulled away in a big way in the second.
Yeah, they did just a better job defensively in the second half. One, they shut down any offensive rebounds. The Blazers had 11 second chance points in the first half, only 3 in the second half. So they were able to kind of say, all right, we're going to lock down defensively. And then from that, when you start getting stops, that opens up the opportunity to start running. They had 27 fast break points. They were flying all over the court, getting up and down, putting pressure on those Blazers defensively, and that opened everything up for them offensively. And they really blew the game open in the third quarter, where they forced the Blazers to shoot 34% from the field. I think the Blazers were 3 of 10 from 3. They just did a great job coming out of the half, being more focused.
Deni Avdija was the leading scorer in this one. He finished with 23 points, 6 rebounds, 14 assists on Portland's side. But it was a balanced attack, especially in the second half for Denver. All 5 starters finished in double figures, headlined by 22, 14, and 14 from the Joker. Peyton Watson returns. He finished with 14 off the bench. Dom 2K, what made Denver so effective down the stretch?
Yeah, Mo pretty much got it all right there. They just came out better and more focused on the defensive side. And for Portland, I was kind of thinking they were going to regress to the mean on threes, because in the first quarter they came out just blazing. I think both teams ended with about 40 or so points there. You kind of feel like you watch this team throughout the season, and sometimes they're able to sustain that. Sometimes it comes back, especially when Denver is as potent as they are on both sides. It just really couldn't last for Portland. So I thought that worked out for them. And then the small ball lineup that I called out at halftime, Denver, it didn't look quite as bad as it did in the second quarter against Portland. So, yeah, at the end of the day, this is something that the Nuggets definitely needed. They, this week, have a chance to pretty much put themselves out of range and falling into the play-in. So, you want to win these type of games, and they locked in the second half.
Yeah, let's talk about how everything is shaping up, especially here in the Western Conference. The Trailblazers, the 9 seed currently in the West. The Nuggets are 5th, and every game is going to count as we head down the stretch. All night, we're going to bring you a little bit more about how the standings are shifting, where your favorite team might be ending up. So, Mo, when you look at a game like this, Denver jockeying for position, hoping to maybe fight its way into home court advantage in the first half. Then you have the Blazers, who are trying to maybe get into that top half of the play-in tournament. Every night is going to mean something huge to both teams. How do you see Denver gaining ground, Portland losing ground? What's the West shaping up like for you?
Well, I think the West is just really becoming a bit absurd. And I think we're beginning to see a little bit of space develop between the play-in teams in the West and the top 6 in the West. Obviously, we know the top 2 are kind of set. The Lakers at 3 have created a little bit of cushion even between them at 3 and 4. But 4, 5, and 6 seems like it just changes every day. When you look in the standings the next morning, it's like, oh, a new team's at 5, another team's at 6. So I think there's a lot of sort of just constant change, which means also, if you're one of these teams in the 4, 5, 6, being Denver, Minnesota, or Houston, you need to be locked in nightly. You can't have a slip up. You can't come in soft one night. You got to be ready to go each night if you're trying to make sure you finish with the highest possible seed. And you might even fly to 3rd if the Lakers ever cool down.
Yeah, what Mo says about 4, 5, 6 is equally true, Dom, for 7, 8, 9, 10. 7, the Suns have a little bit of separation, but let's talk about the 8, 9, 10 range. The Clippers win last night. They move back up into the top half of this bracket. The Blazers losing here puts them back in the bottom part of the bracket. The West play-in, Dom, is going to be pretty heated.
Yeah, and it's extremely close because pretty much from 8 to 10, those teams could all still hypothetically swap. It's a little bit tougher for Golden State right now, really not knowing when Steph Curry is going to come back, not knowing what nights you're going to have Porzingis. So that's kind of flip flopping with them. But the Clippers being in the play-in, that's very interesting to me, just because of how their season has gone, the personnel, how they've been able to continue to figure things out. Kawhi remaining healthy, and now Darius Garland getting healthy and just really showing out for them as well. So they've got some lineups that work and could really be annoying to a first round team. Probably, it'd be a tough series, but yeah, they could definitely be annoying to a 1 or 2 here.
Your words, not mine, Dom, but Mo and I will be happy to talk a little bit more Clippers later on in the show. But for now, as we always do here on the association, we want to make sure that you hear from the players and coaches themselves before we bring you to some live look-ins at our live action. So let's hear from Denver head coach David Adelman about what went right.
Coach, obviously defense took a little bit to get into this game, but you guys ultimately found a way to kind of add some of it into the second half. What do you think transitioned into that, and what do you like about the group in the second half?
Yeah, much better activity, gotten the ball and pick and roll actions. I thought we sat down and cut off a lot of the drive and kick they got in the first half. And then we defensive rebounded better, which allowed us to run. The 27 fast break points really is off the rebounding. They only had 14 points off their turnovers is not many. So that's just 50-50 balls. Like I said, team rebounding, which leads to offense. The first half, I thought we were going through the motions. We were guarding their plays like it was a walkthrough, not a game. So it wasn't good enough. But I did like the response, and I thought the second unit to start the fourth quarter was awesome. They got into people. They caused some havoc, and that's what they have to do. And I think it's important to remember, when you play that way, Robert Williams sometimes is going to look really good against a small ball lineup, but you have to stick with it and see if it's effective, and it was in the second half. And I thought that kind of flipped the game. The third quarter was better. The fourth quarter was really good defensively.
What are you hoping to see from that small ball lineup that you said to start the fourth and the second quarter? What are you hoping they accomplish when they're out there, and what's the style that would mean success for them?
Yeah, I think it's got to be forcing turnovers. We did that to start the fourth and got some easy baskets that way. And then I think the second part of that is when we play offensively, we did it a few times, we have to get better at finding the roller. One team switch 1 through 5 against that group because they will. And Jamal will get blitzed and all those things. So there's been enough positives in the last couple of games where I've seen guys play make. We got Pate on the roll. He missed the shot, but it was a good play. Spence the other night made an unbelievable pass to Tim in the corner. And so offensively, I think it's going to be, certain nights it'll look tough out there. But defensively, I think it can really shut people down. And if we're, we've always talked about this, if we're a plus with that group, which we were in the second half, I think we were -1 in the first half, we know it's coming back in. And that starting five, offensively and defensively, honestly, the efficiency has been very impressive this season. So just trying to find a group that can do that. And with that being said, I said it in the locker room, these guys, Valanciunas didn't play tonight. He's got to stay ready. Julian Strother not in the rotation tonight. Jules started for us, won us games. Jalen Pickett, Zeke Naji, all these guys have had impacts this season. So that's going to be the challenge for this team, is being unselfish. And if it's not your night, staying locked in, being ready. But right now, that lineup, that second unit, it's been very effective.
David, how did Peyton look to you in his first game back?
Tired, but very effective. First half, that's the funny thing about the minute restriction when you get the number. Sometimes it's frustrating, and sometimes it's almost too many minutes when a guy hasn't played. Playing 3-on-3 and 5-on-5 with coaches is not the same as playing against the Blazers and Drew Holiday picking you up full the first time you touch the ball. I thought he was good. He was aggressive, got to the paint. I loved the 6 rebounds, the 3 assists. And I think the more he has the ball and gets in the paint, the more experience he has doing that. I think the assist totals will go even higher because he really does bring 2-3 people with his length and the way he can finish. So first game back, a lot of positives from Peyton. And you can see the impact on our depth. It's not just him. It's the ability to play different ways, which he provides, with the things he can do on both ends of the floor.
I think it's only the 9th game with that ideal rotation, Jonas notwithstanding for you. With all those guys coming back now, do you feel there's more defensively that you can get more of that second half to get those runouts to keep what you guys do with everybody back and getting back in familiar roles?
Yeah, I think so. And I think when Aaron's minutes can go higher. We had him in a good spot tonight, but you can almost play small but be big at the same time. And I think that's the ultimate goal in our league is these teams that we say play small. Like Amen Thompson's not small. It's like we say he is. Jabari Smith is not small. So I think we use that term loosely sometimes. But if you have Aaron at your 5 and you can slide, Spence and Peyton at your 3 and your 4, that's a big small ball lineup. So, but right now I like the group the way they're playing. Enough ball handling with Bruce out there, defensive intensity, and some guys that can play make behind Jamal Murray, what he provides when they put 2 people on him. Those are all good things. We just have to keep progressing and working on it as we go. No. That's it.
Well, we're less than a month away from the playoffs getting underway. And as I hear David Adelman talking about this Denver crew, I am reminded of just how tough of an out this Denver team is going to be for anybody. So, Dom, as we listen to that, talking about their defensive improvements, small ball lineups, what we can see from Jokic here in the playoffs, what excites you about Denver's potential down the stretch and into the offs?
Yeah, it was kind of a lot of what he was talking about in the interview right there. Just you could see he's trying to find these lineups. They've had to use, I think they said the other day, around 25 different lineups this year. Different, mixing in guys with being injured. Jokic missed some time, Aaron Gordon, Watson, and so their defensive rating has suffered. They're like 22nd this year. And you look at them last year, they were a game away from knocking OKC out of the playoffs. So this is a team that still believes that they have a shot at a championship, not really just a tough out. And it starts now with the little bit of time you have left, trying to integrate Watson. He's huge. You look at them play teams like the Lakers the other day, they didn't really have a guy to put on him. You have Christian Brown, but after that, you're really missing Watson there. You're missing him with playmaking. So, you use this to find your small ball lineups to get stops because teams have gained some confidence against them, like it used to be, pretty much putting Jokic in action and being able to find their offense there. So, yeah, I think this is still a team that's contending. I'm not looking at them being 5th or 6th or what they've done, having to use different lineup after different lineup. And, I think they can find it here in the next month.
Mo, you get into the nitty gritty for a living. You have for many years in many different capacities. So to that end, I ask you, what excites you about Denver as a contender? And do they have any weaknesses that their opponents could exploit in the playoffs?
Well, what excites me is Jokic. And that's not even being nitty gritty or anything like that. He's just fun to watch and creates a lot of excitement with the way he plays and how he goes about everything. But I think the thing that excites me this year, though, is the team's depth. And, as we heard Adelman talk, they do have to figure out the rotations and lineups now because they've had so many guys in and out of the lineups have never been fully healthy. This is a really encouraging game with the way Cameron Johnson played. He hasn't really kind of plugged in the way everybody thought once the season began, but he's had a bunch of good games. And tonight was one of those where you looked right off the bat, knocking down some threes, finished with 14 at the half. You're looking at going like, that's the Cameron Johnson they need when they get to the playoffs. If all of this is kind of coming together at the right time for the Nuggets, right as they head to the playoffs, it's going to be really interesting. Concerns, obviously, I think is going to be defense. They haven't been as locked in defensively as they have been in years past, but you could also point to some of the stuff where Christian Brown's been out. You had Aaron Gordon out for long stretches, so trying to figure all that stuff out. But I think as excited as I am for Jokic, you have to be a little bit worried because he hasn't looked as good defensively. Now, we don't know if that's Jokic going like, I'll lock in defensively once the playoffs begin, but that's something you got to keep an eye out for and hope if you're a Nuggets fan that that's the case and that's the way it's going to be. But that's going to be something to watch out for when we get to the playoffs.
Power saving mode, perhaps, for a powerhouse, Nikola Jokic. And you mentioned it, Cam Johnson, his highest scoring single quarter of the season was that first quarter. So when we come back, we will go ahead, finish wrapping up our coverage of this game, Portland, Denver, and then we'll take you to Sacramento.